Hey everyone, welcome to this webinar on word problems. We'll get started in about a minute. I'm waiting for a few more people to join in. In the meantime, I'll quickly do a audio check. So if you can hear me clearly, I'm going to add a poll now. I would request you to kindly mark yes in the poll if you can hear me loud and clear. So if you can see the poll, I would request all of you to please mark yes in the poll. Okay, great. I can see that all of you can hear me, which is good. I'll wait for another 10-15 seconds for the rest of you to put in your polls, those who are still joining in. Okay, cool. So it's still 100%. Great. So let me end the poll now. And let's get started. Once again, welcome to this webinar on word problems, where we are going to talk about three important topics that are tested on the GRE. Now, before we get started, I'll very quickly introduce myself. My name is Saqib. I'm going to be a main host today. I am one of the co-founders of GMAT-Wiz and GRE-Wiz, and I'm also one of the principal architects of the Wiz Intelligence that you see on the platform. So if you have tried either of these two platforms, either GMAT-Wiz or GRE-Wiz, you must be aware that it's a truly personalized platform, and a lot of work has been put into it to create that personalized experience. I've been actively working on it, still working. I have worked on it and still working on it to make it as better as possible on a daily basis. Apart from that I love teaching quant. I've been in this industry for about 11 years now, and I primarily take quant sessions with the main goal of making sure to simplify concepts as much as possible and to tell you the best ways of solving questions. Okay. Now, as far as the webinar sequence is concerned, it's pretty straightforward. We'll jump right into the topic without wasting any time. And the duration of the webinar is going to be roughly 60 minutes. And I'll be keeping the last 10 minutes for any Q&A. So if you have any questions related to either GRE or say, or the questions that we have discussed, or regarding your prep, or if you have questions like which test should you take, GMAT with GRE with, any kind of question that you might have, you can ask me at the end of the webinar. I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. Okay, so with this, guys, let's get into the main session and let's get started. Now, this is the second webinar that we are taking on quant. The first one, if you've attended last week, it was on comparison, and we decided, okay, we have done a type of question. Now let's focus on a module, and obviously there are four modules. Either you could be tested on word problem, or number properties, or geometry, or algebra, but we decided to start with word problems. And the main reason behind this is the amount of questions that come on the GRE in word problems is quite a lot. So you can expect anywhere between 12 to 15 questions. When I say 12 to 15, I mean combined both. You get two quant sections, right? So 20, 40 questions. So out of 40 questions, around 12 to 15 questions would be from word problems only, and that's a huge chunk, right? So it makes sense to focus on this a lot. In fact, out of 12 to 15 questions, I would say 5 to 6 questions are based on simply percentages and fractions and P&L questions. So about 50% of those questions are just based on percentages. So the three topics that I'm going to focus on today is basically a bit about ratio, because as I told you, fractions, ratios are something that is quite tested on the GRE. Then the other is percentage, because as I said, about 6 to 7 questions you can expect in the exam, which is just based on percentage, profit and loss, and those kind of topics. And I'm also going to cover a bit of time and work, because you can get 1 or 2 questions each in each of the sections of quant. So all in all, if you can get a decent understanding of these three topics, or you can at least understand what are the major things that you need to take care of while solving such questions, you can ace, you can do really well in the WP part at least. The second reason why I chose word problem is I've seen there's a general trend, be it GMAT or GRE or any test prep exam, students struggle while trying to set up equations after reading the word problem question. So there's a lot of text involved, right? In fact, a word problem question would look something like this. This is a word problem question, the second question. Now notice it's a lot of text out here, right? So you have to read each and every line, figure out what are they talking about, try to set up the equation, which we call translation. And this is where a lot of people falter. Okay, and this that is the reason we wanted to take care of it, because there are a few set ways of setting up equations. If you understand how to translate well, life would be easy for you. The reason I gave this slide was to tell you to make you understand why, what do we mean by translation and what do we mean by equations. An algebra question would look something like this. You would have an equation directly set with you. Now you need to work with it. So if you know how to work with equations, how to work with inequality, you will very easily be able to solve this question and get the answer, right? But here, no equation. The equation is not given. No equation, right? So there are two tasks involved here. First is setting up the equation, and the second is then solving it. So this becomes a bit complex for a lot of students, and they end up making a lot of mistakes. The third reason which I felt because of which we need to take word problem is obviously time pressure, because as we said, a lot of text is involved. So you read very quickly. If you read very quickly, I've seen there's a tendency to miss out on a lot of information. And if you miss out information, obviously you'll end up making mistakes. So I just want to also cater to that fact also, that how you can read at a very comfortable pace and yet be able to solve the question really easily within 1.5 minutes without any issues. Okay, so all in all, it's in your best interest that if you can master these three topics: ratio, percentage, time, and work, you will be able to do really well in these areas. Okay, I know I'm doing a monologue here. So far, any questions? Do you agree with this? If you have solved word problem questions, have you faced such an issue? If not, what kind of issues have you faced? And feel free to let me know in the chat box. There's no right and wrong answer here, but if you can let me know your personal experience of what you face, maybe I can try and cater that also during the webinar. But in my opinion, the number one problem is reading very quickly under time pressure, missing out on information. Second issue is not being able to translate properly. And third, obviously, is the conceptual gap. If you don't understand the concept well, you'll have a problem. So knowing the concept does make sense. So do let me know, what do you think? What is your issue? Uh, um, in general, at as at Wiz, we usually suggest a three-step approach every time to solve a question, and these are the main three ways. One is reading and analyzing the question stem. Now, I'm not saying do it slowly. I'm not saying do it fast. Okay, so whenever I say tell people, hey, don't go so fast, they're like, hey, if I read slowly, I will eat up a lot of time. So I'm not saying read slowly, and I'm not even saying read fast. What I'm saying is find out the pace that you are comfortable with. At what pace, how slowly or how fast should you read, that would help you make sure that you have understood the question stem properly, you have written down all the information that is there in the question stem very properly. Okay, so find a comfortable pace for yourself, whatever that pace be. It could be some people might be able to read the question in 30 seconds, some might need 20, some might need 40, but this is the crucial step. If you make a mistake here, thinking about step 2, step 3 is useless, because you'll keep on, you'll read very quickly, you'll start solving questions very fast, you'll realize that you're not getting an answer, you'll again go back, read quickly, and it's a vicious loop that you would fall into, and you realize that you've wasted a lot of time. Okay, so we are going to make sure that you understand what is the meaning of comfortable pace, where when I read a question, I'll show you how I am reading it and the way I'm jotting down information. You can try and copy that also, that could help. Now, after we have read and written down all the relevant information, that is when where we are there any equation that we can create after reading it, we'll do it. Okay, but there's a small step which we need to do, is try to first of all figure out what we need to find out and how we should go about doing it. Okay, how should we find out the answer? Now you might say, hey, isn't it obvious? The question stem literally says what we need to find out, so why do we really need to write it down and figure out what do we need to find out? The reason I'm saying this, write down exactly what you need to find out, is because sometimes in a lot of comparison questions, or even difficult MSc and PS, or FIB questions, what you would not, unless and until you don't translate it properly, you'll not have full clarity on what exactly are you looking for. And if you don't have clarity on what exactly are you looking for, there's a good chance that you would blindly solve questions. In fact, I'll give you an example while we are solving questions, and you'll understand what am I talking about. Okay, so reading, analyzing, and trying to figure out what you need to find out is most important before you actually solve the question. Now, in this session, what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on one of the two skills that are needed, which is translation, as I've already told you. Along with that, I'll see if in certain questions, if there's a scope of even teaching you how to draw inferences, which are implicit inferences. I'll try and do that. But keep in mind the main focus of the session, it would be the first skill. And word problem, how can you translate in those three important topics to do well? And we are going to do that with the help of 6 questions. Okay. So what I've done is I've taken up 2 questions from each topic. Um, and I've taken those kind of questions which cover some really important concept. And if you understand that concept, then you will be able to solve at least two to three variations of that particular question that can come in the exam. Obviously, you can understand it's not possible to cover everything in this 60 minutes, but I'm pretty sure that by the end of this session, through those 6 questions, you will definitely be able to solve at least 30, 40, 50 more questions of different varieties, guaranteed. Okay. Now, those of you who are attending the webinar for the first time, the way we conduct it is that I'll show you a question. We learn through questions basically. Okay, because it is very difficult to teach you the topics and then give you a question. So what I do is I give you a question and give you a chance to solve it. Okay, I'll give you about 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes to solve it, not more than that. And I'll add a poll. You mark your answers in the poll. This is very important. You will not put your answers in the chat box unless and until it's a FIV question. If it's a question which has options, then you would actually choose an option and mark that option. Okay, in the poll. And after 2 minutes, I'll start the discussion either through some certain concepts if I feel there's a need to teach a concept, or I'll explain the question and the different variations that can come in the exam of that particular question. Okay. I hope this is perfectly clear. If this is perfectly clear, I would request you to quickly mark yes in this yes and no poll, and then we would get started, guys. And again, feel free to put, any kind of doubt that you have, any kind of pain points that you want me to take care of in the chat box. If it is possible for me to do that, I'll definitely make sure that I'll try and cover it while discussing those questions. Okay. So a quick yes in the yes and no poll if whatever I have said is perfectly clear. Okay, great, guys. So let's get started with the first question. And here's the first question on your screen. And I'll give you exactly 1.5 minutes to solve this one. Just give me 1 sec. I will add the poll. Here's the poll, guys. Make sure to mark your answer in the poll only. Okay. Another 30 seconds, guys, then I'll end the poll and start the discussion. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now, guys. Ideally, it should not take more than 1.5 minutes to do this one. Interesting result. In fact, there's a small trap in this question. Some of you have fallen for it, but most of you, I think, have got the correct answer. 75% you have marked B as the answer, and 25% of you have marked C as the answer, or D as the answer. So let's discuss um, how should we solve such questions. So as I told you, I'll first focus on the way we read and the way we should translate while reading the question. Okay. So whenever you start reading, make sure that you simultaneously, if possible, start jotting down information also and breaking down the information. So for example, I'll read first this part. It says that the ratio of the number of maths to physics to chemistry books in a shop is 7 is to 3 is to 4, right? So I'm going to set up an equation. In fact, let me write it here. I'll write it like this. Math is to physics is to chemistry is 7 is to 3 is to 4. This is the way you should translate it. Okay. If you want, you can obviously go one step ahead, which I usually do. Now, so if you go through the video lessons of ratio, you will learn that in ratio, whenever we say that m is to p is to c is 7 is to 3 is to 4, that means this is in the simplest form. Ratio gives us the simplest form. That means we have cancelled something common from both of them. What I mean by that is, say, for example, the number of math book could be 21, the number of physics book could be 9, and the number of chemistry book could be 12. This is a hypothetical example, not related to the question. Okay. Now, what if I want to find out the ratio? I notice that there is 3 common in all of them, right? So 7 times 3, 3 times 3, and 4 times 3. So I cancel out this 3 and then write the ratio as 7 is to 3 is to 4. So what we do, the way we translate it is that we write the actual number of math book would be 7 times something common, right? So we write it as 7 times, say, x. Okay, where x is the common entity that I've cancelled out. The actual number of physics book is 3x, and the actual number of chemistry book is 4x. Okay, so these are the actual numbers where x is the common entity that we cancelled. That is something that we advocate that you always do when you're solving a ratio question, so that you will be able to set up an equation. After setting an equation or inequality, you'll be able to solve it easily. Okay, now let's move to the next information. The number of physics book. Now notice, now they're talking about number. Now if I would not have written it like this, I would not be able to translate. Now the number of chemistry book, which is 3x, is greater than. Now a lot of people just read it and move on. Now what we recommend is that you translate it and write is greater than with a greater than sign. 3x is basically greater than 42. So see, I've set up one equality. Okay. And the number of math and chemistry books. Um, in fact, there's a minor mistake. I would say the better way to write it is the sum of the number of math and chemistry book. That's a better way of writing it. But I think most of you translated in that way only. The sum of the number of math and chemistry book is less than 176. Okay. So math and chemistry. Now again, they're talking about the number. What is math? 7x. What is chemistry? 4x. What would be the sum? The sum is going to be 11x. 11x is less than, okay? So again, translated as less than, is less than 176. That's my second equation or inequality. That is all we have. Okay, our step 1 is done. We have written everything properly. We have set up our equation. Step 2 is to think, what do we need to do? So if I look at this, I see I need to find out the number of chemistry books, which is 4x. So to do that, I need the value of x. Now notice the question stem did not talk about x, right? I told you now you need to be very clear what you need to find out. Now you could have said, okay, I need to find out the chemistry book. That's one way of looking at it. But the other way of looking at it is that, hey, to find out the chemistry book, what exactly do I need? And what exactly I need is x. Okay, so that would be my main goal. I'll try and see if I can get that. Now I have two equations. I'll work with them. 3x is greater than 42, so I'll write x is greater than 14. Okay, fair enough. So I have translated the first inequality. The second inequality, I'm doing it here only. 11x is less than 176 means that 11 is less than 16. Okay, so I know that x is greater than 14 and it is less than 16. So obviously the only value that falls in between is x equal to 15. So see, I have the value of x. If I have the value of x, I can plug it here and I can find out my answer. Okay, is this clear? By the way, none of you got this correct. Is it because of the something or something else? How did you go about doing it, guys? Curious now, none of you got it correct. Because quantity A is actually 60. I expected a lot of you to mark D. I'll tell you why. What I've noticed is that whenever people see greater than or less than, whenever they see these kind of entities, then they think, okay, I cannot find out the exact value, so let me mark the answer as D. That is, they do not do any analysis, they do not do most of the calculation, they are marking D, which 25% of you did. But I'm curious, why did you mark B as the answer? And guys, please participate. It's very important to do that. Otherwise, this session would be useless if I only keep on giving you questions and you keep on solving. So those of you marked B as the answer, what did you do? Or you can also let me know, did you approach the question in this way or not? In fact, let me bring up the yes and no poll. If you approached using exactly the way I've shown here, mark yes, else no. Did you use the exact approach or did you do something else? If you use the exact approach, you can mark yes. Okay, then I'm saying that you guessed. Okay, did you guess D by the way, or did you guess B? Okay, I can see 66% of you saying no, you did not use this methodology. Now, but is this clear now? Do you have more clarity now on how to solve this such a question? Is this does this add more clarity? Now, why this is a common method. I told you now, through every question, you will be able to solve multiple more questions. Now, what is the learning that you need to take from that question? One of the biggest learning that you need to take from the question is how to translate a ratio information. This is one of your biggest takeaways, because in almost all ratio questions that you would do, you would have to perform this particular step. This is important. Okay, if you are able to write it in this way, then obviously you'll be able to set up the remaining equations. And the second important thing was related to inequalities: is greater than, is less than. I know people don't usually write it as greater than, less than most of the cases. So now I hope it is clear, whenever you see greater than, less than, you don't have to just read it for the sake of reading it. You can actually set up an inequality and start solving it. Okay, you mark P. Okay, no problem. What about the others, guys? I hope this was helpful. This was one of the, I think, most important type of question. Remaining GRE questions you will see are based on inequality, like the easy ones or the medium questions that are there. Those questions would be something like this: the number of physics book is equal to 42. They'll give you information like this, which are very easy to solve, because once you have 3x is equal to this, you would be able to just write is equal to 42 and solve questions. So that is why I did not give such questions, because those are easy to solve questions. Okay. Now, if this is perfectly clear, I can see all of you are saying yes. So let's move on to the second question, which is also pretty interesting. And I'm giving comparison questions only, but this is the second and only comparison question that we have. Post that, we'll move into a few MCQs. And I'm adding the poll here. For this question, I would give you 2 minutes. Slightly on the, I won't say it's difficult, but if you haven't come across concepts like this, it may take you some time to figure out what to do. Okay, another 30 seconds, guys. Okay, if anyone else wants to put in this one, please do so. Take a calculated guess what could be the answer. Those of you who haven't responded yet. And again, keep in mind, it's okay to get it incorrect. That's totally fine as long as you're able to, because in the GRE also, the remaining questions, if you have, you should get into the habit of guessing also. Let's say you're running out of time and you have to mark a certain answer after doing a question. What would you do? You need to mark something, right? So take a shot. Okay. Okay, I'm ending the poll now. And I can still see that the favorite answer for this question, at least for comparison questions, is option B. So all of you, in fact, think that 2250 is greater. Okay, let's see. Now, first of all, let's talk about the concept, okay? How do we, the reading part remains the same. Okay, we'll read it slowly, steadily, and see what is given to us. But this is a question which is based on proportionality, directly proportional, inversely proportional, these kind of questions. Concept-wise, you need to know just two things out here. That is more than enough for you to solve the question. If I say that A is directly proportional to B, okay, then that basically means the way you should translate it is that A is K times B, K multiplied by B, where K is a constant. Okay, by directly proportional, what it means is that if I increase B, A will also increase. If I decrease B, A will also decrease. So they move in the same direction, and that direction would be, basically they move in the same direction is what you need to remember. Okay, and this is the way you set up your equation. And if I say A is inversely proportional, inversely simply means A is 1 by B, that's all. And while setting up the equation, you set it up in this way only, K times 1 by B. That's it. That's all that you need to keep in mind. And keep in mind that these are constant. The values don't change. So for example, a way to write the equation would be A is equal to 3. So this is one way of writing it where K is equal to 3. Okay. The value of K doesn't change. I can keep on changing the value of B and I'll get corresponding values of A. That is how it works. Okay. And when I say inversely proportional, I'm sure you must have understood now. What it means is that if I increase B, A will decrease. And if I decrease B, A will increase. So basically they move in the opposite direction. That's it. Here they move in the same direction. Here they move in the inversely proportional. They move in the opposite direction. Okay. So I hope both the equations, how you need to set up is perfectly clear. Now, with this in mind, let's read the question. So research suggested that the profitability index denoted by PR, okay, so they are helping me here. They're helping me set up my variables. So PR was directly proportional to the investment index denoted by IN. Directly proportional. The keyword here is directly proportional. So either you can write it as PR is equal like this, or you can directly set up your equation. You can write PR is equal to K times K multiplied by IN. Okay, that's one equation. Now see, I'm here not focusing a lot on what does profitability index mean, investment index mean. I'm not worried about it at this point of time. They could mean a number of things. The definition hasn't been given in the question, and I will not worry about it. If the definition would have been important, then GRE would have actually explained that. But if they haven't, then I'll assume that they are something that are directly proportional. Just the way I've written A is directly proportional to B. I don't care what is A, what is B. I know that two things are directly proportional. That's all. Okay. So let's read it the next part. PR is directly proportional to investment index, which was, now when I say which, I'm talking about the investment index only, which was directly proportional to twice the product index. Okay. Now this is something which I haven't told you yet, but if they give you the relation then you can use that relation. So what they're basically telling is investment index is directly proportional to twice of the product index. Okay. So while setting up the equation, I'll set up like this. In is, again, I have to take a variable. Now here is another place where people make a mistake. They take the variable again as k. Now understand, k is just a general way of telling you how you should set up an equation, but each and every equation will not have the same variable. Okay, so if there are two relation given to you, ideally you should write it as k1 and k2. Okay, they are two different constants. Unless and until the question explicitly states that they are the same constant, then only I'll write it as k and k. But if nothing is mentioned, I'll take them as two different things, and I'll write it as in is k times 2 pd. Okay, so this is my equation 1. This is my equation 2. I'll pause here for a moment. If you have any questions, please ask. If this is perfectly clear, please let me mark yes in the yes or no poll, because this is the main crux of setting up the equation. Because any direct proportion or indirect proportion question that you deal with, you will need to be able to write it in this way. If you understand this properly, in most of the questions, you will be able to set up the equation. So please let me know if this is perfectly clear. Okay, great, good. I can see all of you are saying yes, which is good. If you have any questions, please feel free to write it in the chat box. Now, what do I do with this equation? I won't do anything. I'll read further what is given. Okay, so don't worry about what should I do with this. The last information that is given to us is that when PD is 300, okay, uh, PR takes the value of 1200. Okay, so when PD, okay, so when this is 300, this becomes 1200. Now, this looks dicey now, because I have an equation related to IN. And but so ideally I would have been expecting if they're telling me about PR, I would expect something about IN, right? And that is where you might stumble and you might end up marking again D as the answer which no one chose, which is fine. We'll talk whether B is correct or not. But I've seen a lot of people think, okay, hey, IN is not given, PD is given. I don't know what to do with it. So let's check it. Let me mark D, move on again, which is incorrect. Understand that what I can do is, I'll write this here somewhere. Okay, PD is 300 and PR is 1200. Okay, I'll put it here because I don't know what to do with it. And I need to find out the value of PR when PD is 560. Okay, so now you should ask yourself, hey, they're giving me PD and PR. The data is also giving me PD and PR. So that means IN is not important. So is there a way in which I can get rid of IN? See, I'm trying to figure out again, what do I need? I need PR with PD. What do I don't need? I don't need IN. So what I'll do is, I will set up my equation like this. I'll say, okay, I know what IN is. Let me put this IN here. So I'll write PR is equal to K1 times K2 times 2PD. So I've replaced IN with this information. So now I have an equation PR is equal to K1 K2 times 2PD. Okay. And how will this help me? Well, I don't need I don't know K1 K2 yet, right? But I have this information with me. So let me write it as third equation. I know PR is 1200 when PD is 300. So let me put it here. Now, if I do this, I can cancel everything out and I can get K1 times K2 is equal to 2. So now see, this is helping me actually figure out the value of K1, K2. And what did I tell you? K, the constant is always the same. It doesn't change. So once I have that value, I can put it back. So I can set up my final equation. I can say PR. I can replace this with 2 times 2PD. Okay. And now I can find out my quantity A. I need to find out PR when PD is 560. So let's put it here, which is 4 times 560. Okay, so here I get 2240. So, which is good. That means quantity B is in fact greater than quantity A. So the correct answer would be option B only, which all of you have got it correct, which is good. Now tell me, how did you all solve it? Did you do it in this way, or did you simply use unitary method to get the answer? What did you do? Okay, Ariel, you did that only, right? 300 to 560 as 1200 to x, right? Okay, Eril, obviously you can do it. That's not a problem. I'll tell you the reason why I showed you this methodology is because in a lot of questions, first of all, let me know if this is clear to everyone. Let me bring up the yes and no poll once again. And I'll explain my rationale why I did this. Don't worry. What you have done is correct. You can use that proportionality to get the answer, not a problem, because they are directly proportional. So you'll get the answer. But the reason I've done this is because you'll get a lot of questions in the exam. This is basically a medium level question, by the way. But a lot of hard question would have statements like this, that PR is directly proportional to the square root of in. So your equation would turn out to be like this: PR is k root in, and which is directly proportional to the, maybe say, cube of PD. So your next equation would become in is equal to k2 times PD cube. Now there, if you try and use the normal unitary method, directly proportional, where you said 300 to 560 is 1200 to x, it won't work. It's not going to work, because now there's no direct proportionality. Now things are, we are dealing with cube roots and square roots, and in those cases direct proportionality is not going to help you get the answer. So there, this method will falter. So knowing the generic method is slightly helpful, because when you're not dealing with simple directly proportionality, and when you're dealing with cube roots and square roots, you can take a call accordingly. And say, and things could change like this also. Instead of direct, that I could give you indirect also. If I give you that, things will change even further. If this becomes like this, now you cannot use it, because there's an inverse relation, not a direct relation. Unitary method can be applied when there's a direct relation. Okay, so I hope it's clear why I'm not using this methodology. You can definitely use it. It would be work in this case, get you the answer very quickly. But if you remember the generic method, then it will be applicable in all the questions. So you should know when to use ratio, when to use this one. Okay, okay, great. Uh, so I hope with the help of these two ratio questions, you should be able to solve all varieties, at least most of the variety of direct, indirect proportional questions, and most of the ratio-based equality and inequality questions easily. Apart from that, there are a few other concepts of ratio, but these two are the most important ones in my opinion. Okay, now let's move on to percentages. And here's the first FIB question. Now, I would give you again 2 minutes to solve this question, and I would request you to put in your response in the chat box. I'm setting the chat box notification to private for now. So whatever notification message that you'll send me, I'll be able to see it. Okay, no one else. I'm saying this because I highly encourage all of you to, give me the answer after solving this question, even if it's correct or incorrect, doesn't matter. I won't call out names. Don't worry about it. Okay. And I would give you in this question about 2 minutes to do this one. Okay. Okay, I already have my first answer. What about the others, guys? I'll give another 30 seconds. Okay, answer number two. And I would also request those of you who have put in your responses to also mention whether it is an increase or decrease. Okay. Come on, guys, more answers, please. As I told you, it's okay even if you get it wrong. That's totally fine. Okay. So I have an increase, I have a decrease, I have zero. So I have all kind of answers with me now. Okay, great. Let me, in fact, start the discussion. I don't see any more responses, which is fine. So let's start the discussion. I've made the message public, by the way. So now you can post freely. First of all, let me talk about two concepts which I think can help you solve such questions. One is, how do you deal with increased, decreased? Okay, increased by, decreased by, these kind of scenarios. How do you set up your equation? And the second thing, is there a formula that you can use to figure out the answer? Okay, that's the second thing that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the formula, though I'm not a fan of this formula. The formula that I'll talk about is useful when I'm dealing with two percentages, but I'm still telling you because some of you might be inclined to use the calculator to get the answer, so you can use it. But whenever I say A, increases by say X percent, okay, increased by X percent or increased by X percent, what I mean by that is that the value of A is increasing by a factor of 1 plus X by 100. Okay. Now I can break it down to make you understand even further. Think of it in this way. When I say A increased by X percent, that means I have the value of A. And along with that, I'm increasing this value of A by X percent. X percent means X by 100 times A. X percent of A. Okay. So if you take A common, you'll notice that you're getting 1 plus X by 100. And this is what we sometimes call as the factor or the multiplier. In fact, the better word would be multiplier here. Okay. So whenever you see increased by, okay, so you simply do 1 plus X by 100 and multiply it with the original value. That's the easiest way to remember it. Okay. So logically, now you must have understood, if I say decreased by X percent, then that simply means A 1 minus X by 100. So this becomes a new value. Okay. That's important. Concept that you need to keep in mind. And if I simply say, hey, just give me X percent of A, then in this case, the multiplier is simply X by 100, nothing else. Okay. So these are the three cases that you might come across in in any percentage of profit and loss questions. X percent of A, increased by X percent, decreased by X percent. So whenever there's an increase, decrease word given, okay, then you multiply it by 1 plus X by 100, 1 minus X by 100. If the word increase by is not given, they're just talking about certain percentage, okay, 50% of something, then in that case, you simply find X by 100 of that particular value. The second, in fact, there's another thing that you need to keep in mind, which I think is important and will be used a lot. Now, this A could be increased by X percent, say, for example, and then it could, say, for example, be decreased by Y%, hypothetically, let's say, and I can change the pattern also, doesn't matter. So can you tell me what would be the final value here? Can anyone take a guess? How would I write it? A multiplied by what? What should I write here? Anyone? If you've understood this, you should be able to answer this question. A was increased by X percent. So you get some value here. Okay. And that was decreased by Y%. So what would be the final outcome? If you answer this question correctly, believe me, any successive percentage related question, you'll be able to solve very, very easily and very quickly. Anyone? And I just need the factor. I just need the multiplier. What multiplier would I write here? Okay. You don't even have to simplify it. Come on, guys, take a guess. No one? Okay, tell me what would I get here? At least I'm sure you'll be able to tell this now. Tell this part. If I increase it by X%, what will I get here? Tell me this. You are partially correct, Shashikaran. Um, minus X square by 100. No, not X square by 100. Okay. Uh, a little bit of correct, little bit of incorrect. I'll tell you. I'll help you explain this, because if you understand, keep in mind, this is like really important. Can help you solve questions very fast. See, first part was easy, right? Uh, Understand that even if there are multiple, increase, decrease, whatever happens, you will always deal with a multiplier. That's our main takeaway that you need to keep in mind. So if I'm increasing this value by X%, I'll simply multiply it by 1 plus X by 100. Okay. Now understand, this is your new value. Okay. Now this new value is decreased by Y%. Okay. What is your new value? Your new value is A plus X by 100. If you're decreasing this by Y%, that simply means that you'll multiply this by 1 minus Y by 100. That's it. Done. Okay. So logically, if I have three terms, say for example, A is decreased by say X%, then whatever I get, it is decreased by Y%, and then say whatever I get, it increases by Z%, then I don't need to solve each one of them. I'll simply say, okay, I'm doing all of this operation on A now. So there will be three multipliers, 1 minus X by 100, 1 minus Y by 100, and there's an increase, so 1 plus Z by 100. That's it. So you can see you can save a lot of intermediate steps. You won't have to do all of this. You can directly write your result in one shot, your final value. Is this perfectly clear, guys? Let me bring up the yes and no poll quickly. Please let me know if this is clear. Okay, great. Okay, and the last concept that you need to keep in mind is that you find out the percentage increase or decrease. If you want to find out the percentage increase, you do it like this: final value by initial value minus 1 times 100. And if you're trying to find out percentage decrease, then you do initial by final minus 1 times 100. Okay, so these are formulas that you'll have to remember: percentage increase, percentage decrease, because these are used everywhere. All percentage question you'll be using it. Okay, and this multiplier concept obviously is important whenever you're dealing with percentage increase decrease directly. So let's understand this question now, because if this is clear, you'll notice that now you can solve this question in one shot, maybe using just 2 steps, not more than that. Okay, so the cost of the car depreciates every year. I think every 2 year. I think it depreciated only 2 years, right? Let's read further. John purchased a car in the year 2020. Okay. In the year 2021, in fact, this point is useless. It's not needed. John purchased a car in 2020. I don't know the value. Okay. So let's think of it as C for a moment. Okay. In 2021, the car depreciated by 20%. Okay. So after depreciation, I'll get some value. If you want, you can write it like this: C into 1 minus 20 by 100. Okay, if you want to. That's your multiplier. Okay. In 2022, the value decreased by 16 by 3%, which is 50 by 3%. Okay. So there's again a decrease of 50 by 3%. What will you do here? You'll again multiply it with the multiplier. That's all you need to do. Okay. 1 minus 50 by 3 times 100. Now, what else is happening? In 2023, however, the value of the car increased by 50%. Okay. So there's an increase of 50%. Now again, whatever I do, I'll simply multiply it with the multiplier and get my final value. So I'm writing the final value here. C into, now these are percentages, guys, that you need to remember how to write it in fraction. So 20 by 100, you should remember directly that it is 1 by 5, okay? Similarly, 50 by 3 is basically 1 by 6, because technically 50 by 3% means 50 by 3 times 100, which is 1 by 6. So these are very standard, frequently used percentages. Now you might always argue with me and say, hey, I have a calculator, I will be able to do it. So should I remember it? Yes, because that creates a big difference between you and me, right? Or a person who knows this and a person who does not know it, because I'll be able to save a lot of time, and these are used frequently. Like 50% is what? Uh, 1 by 2. So I'll write it 1 by 2. So what is my final value? 1 minus 1 by 5 is 4 by 5. 1 minus 1 by 6 is 5 by 6. 1 plus 1 by 2 is 3 by 2. Now notice 5 gets cancelled out. It cancels out 2 times. So notice your initial value was C. Your final value is also C. So when they are asking what is the percentage increase decrease, there is no increase, there is no decrease, because the value still remains the same. So the answer would be 0. See, did I have to do a lot of stuff out here? No, I did not. I got my answer directly by just using the multiplier concept. Now, those of you who actually found out value at each and every step, I hope you can appreciate the the efficiency of this method, and this can actually help you get the final answer very quickly. Okay, I'll pause here for a moment. Please let me know if this is clear or not. If there are any questions, any doubts, feel free to ask. If it is clear, please mark yes in this yes or no poll. Just one small point that I'll add here is that let's just say hypothetically, okay, let's take a hypothetical situation where let's just say if the final value would have come out to be say 1.5 C, just saying, okay, then you would have to use, because I was looking for percentage increase decrease, I would have said, okay, my value increased from C to 1.5 C. So now I would use the percentage increase formula. I'll have to use the formula then. That would become your next step. Final value is 1.5 C, initial value is C minus 1 times 100, and that would give you 50%. Okay. Since I got the initial was also C, the final was also C, I was able to save this step. I didn't have to do this step at all. I got my answer directly. However, if the answer would have been different, 1.5, 0.8, whatever, I would have to use this formula to get my final answer. If there are no questions, I don't see anything in the chat box. So guys, I'm moving ahead. So we are done with 3 questions here. I just want to make a very quick announcement before I move on to the 4th question, is that we are finally, completely launching our verbal course by June end. And that is why we are running the sale till the 4th of July at our old prices. So these are prices, we have kept our price low initially because we were selling our full quant course, and our verbal course was partial. It was still in the beta phase. That is why we were selling it at a lower price, but these prices would be valid till the 4th of July only, guys. So because now our whole vocabulary course and RC was already there, and each and everything would be added. When I say vocab, we have a separate vocab learner, as well as whatever is needed for GRE. Even that would be present, like the questions of TC, SE, all these things would now be included in our course. So once 4th of July passes, our prices would increase. So if you're interested in looking at GRE Wiz for your prep, I would highly recommend now would be the time to, buy it or talk to us about it. Okay, so that's just the announcement which I wanted to make. Now let's move on to the 4th question. Try this out. Uh, Whatever you learned in the previous question, try and see if you can apply it here. There's another learning this question which I'll obviously tell you, but take a shot. Tell me what answer are you getting in this one. This is an MCQ question, so I'll bring the poll. Kindly mark your answer in the poll only. I did the poll, guys, and I'll give you 1.5 minutes for this one. Okay, last 30 seconds, guys. I've already given you close to 2 minutes, but I'll give you another 30 seconds. Ideally, using the previous concept, you should be able to get this one correct. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. So those of you who haven't responded, please do so quickly. Most of you who have put in your responses, I think you've got it correct. Um, so let's start the discussion. Okay, the purpose of giving this question, guys, was to teach you one important aspect, which is calculations. Now, I know that you will have a calculator in GRE, so you might be tempted to punch in the numbers and try to find out each and every value that that is given in the question stem. But I would strongly advise you not to do that. Okay, and I'll explain why through this question. So what's given to us? It's given that a stationery store buys. So the store is buying 250 pens at a wholesale price of $2 per pen. Okay, so I'll write it like this: stationery store. So I'll write it as SS buys, a short form. Um, Total pens is 250, and the wholesale price I'll write it as W2 is $2 per pen. Okay. The pens are offered for a sale at a retail price 50% greater. Now notice again 50% greater. So what's my selling price? $2 per pen. 50% greater means the multiplier would be 1 plus 1 by 2. Okay, so this is a concept that we learned in the previous question. You could apply it here. And this is a simple calculation, so there's no harm in doing it. You'll get $3 per pen. Okay. 50% greater than the wholesale price. So this part is done. And notice this is the comfortable pace that I'm talking about, the pace where I read and I'm able to jot down each information without missing anything. Now, 60% of the pens are sold at this new retail price, and the remaining 40% are sold at 25% discount from the retail price. Okay. So this is my retail price, by the way. Let me write retail or selling price, whatever you want to call it. So now there is what's happening is out of this 250 pens, 60% of them. Now notice this is the percent off that I was talking about, 60% off the pens, not increase or decrease. So whenever you have something like this, you write it as 60% of 250. Now I'm not going to solve this. I'll keep it like this. Remaining 40% of 250. Okay. So this 60% of 250 was sold at the new retail price, which was $3. So these are the number of pens. Okay. And I'm selling them at $3 per pen. So the total selling price for this 60% pen is this. Okay. And I'm also getting money from this, but I'm selling it at a 25% discount. Now, discount also means decrease by. Okay. When you go learn profit and loss, you'll realize that this means decreased by. So, so $3 is the retail price. Okay. And I'm giving a discount of decreasing it by 25%, which is 1 by 4. Now, this calculation, if you still want to do, you can do, because 1 minus 1 by 4 is 3 by 4, which is easy to do it. But I would still not solve it. I'll keep it like this. Okay. So what is the total amount that I'm getting? This is the total amount that I'm getting. 3 times 60 by 100 times 250 plus 40 by 100 times 250 plus blah, blah, blah. This is my total amount that I'm getting. Okay. Total selling price. Now I need to find out the approximate profit. Now, how do you find your profit? Profit also means percentage increase, by the way. Okay. Yeah, just the way discount means decreased by, profit means percentage increase. Now, what did I tell you? How do I find my percentage increase? It was final by initial minus 1 times 100, right? Now, in terms of profit and loss, this becomes selling price upon cost price minus 1 times 100. Now, what is my total selling price? This is what I have written on top. Divided by total cost price. Now, total cost price would be 250 multiplied by 2, because I bought each pen at 2, minus 1 times 100. times 100. Now you might ask, why did you do this? Why didn't I simply multiply it? The calculations look easy. Honestly, it is easy. If you want to do it, you can do it. But I want to show is that, hey, I'm buying all the pen and I'm selling all the pen. So whenever you are in such a situation when you're buying all the pen, you're selling all the pen, and they're asking you about the profit percentage or loss, this percentage, this 250, is irrelevant. What I mean by that is, if you notice carefully, I can cancel out the 250s from the numerator and denominator. If you're not aware of this concept, it's something like this: 3 times 2 plus, say, 3 times 5 divided by 3. We can take out 3 common and cancel out the 3 from numerator and denominator. So that's what I'm doing directly. I am taking 250 common from the whole term and cancelling it out. Okay, that's what I did. Okay, so why I'm saying that this is irrelevant, because instead of 250, even if I would have given you here, say, 500, 5,000, 50,000, doesn't matter. And in fact, in GRE, they might confuse you by giving you a huge number to waste your time, and you might keep on wasting your time. But if you remember this concept that, hey, Saqib told us that if everything I've bought, I'm selling it, and I know the percentage split in which I'm selling it, I should first of all set up my equation. I should not waste my time doing all of this, because ultimately this value would get cancelled out. So let me cancel it and then see what is left. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now again, 60% and 40% is something that you should ideally know. 60% is 3 by 5, 40% is 2 by 5. These are values which we expect you to remember. So you get 9 by 5 plus, here I think I can cancel something out. 9 by 10, I think, divided by 2, or minus 1 times 100. Okay. And now the simplification is easy. Either you can, write it like this: 10, 20. You can do it like this, or you can uh, keep the 2 as is if you want to. I'll leave that up to you. But main point is, after this, the calculation becomes really easy. You can simply take 20. You'll get 18 plus 9 minus 20 times 100, which would give you how much? 7 by 20 times 100, which is 35%. Okay. So what's the learning and takeaway from here? There are two learnings and takeaway. One is related to discount and profit, which is the easiest learning. That discount means decreased by, so the multiplier is 1 minus x by 100. Profit means percentage increase, so you simply use the percentage increase formula. The only difference is final value is your selling price, initial value is your cost price. Okay. The major learning is that if they're telling you about certain number of pen, and they're telling you that, hey, 20% was sold at this price, 30% was sold at this price, the remaining something was sold at the other price, as long as you know the percentage split, the initial value does not matter. So what I mean by that is that even if I would have given you 500, and even if I would have divided it into, 4 different percentages, saying, hey, 20% was sold at, say, $2, 30% was sold at $3, say 40% was sold as $4, 10% was sold at $3.5. This 500 pence is irrelevant. This would get cancelled out. So in the exam, you can directly take 20% of 2 plus 30% of 3 plus 40% of 4 plus 10% of 3.5 divided by the total initial value. Say, for example, if you bought this at, say, $1.5, divided by 1.5 minus 1 times 100, and that's it. You'll get your answer. So these things will help you save time. These are the questions. If you understand these kind of shortcuts, you will be able to solve your question easily in 1.5 minutes without wasting a lot of time. Please let me know if this is clear or not. Any questions, please feel free to ask. If this is clear, I would request you to please mark yes in the yes and no poll. I hope these learnings are interesting, and you're getting a lot from this session. Now, left with 2 more questions. Let's do that very quickly. We're already past our 60-minute mark. We'll try to wrap it up in the next 15 minutes, hopefully. Here's the next question. And I'll give you, this can be done in 2 minutes. So 2 minutes it is. And here's your poll, guys. Last 30 seconds, everyone. Again, two very important learnings in this question that, and in fact, one of the learning can be used across any word problem question. We'll start the discussion in about 10 seconds. Those of you who are left to mark your answer, please do so. Okay, guys, let's get started with the discussion. So let's see what's given here. Okay, before starting reading this off, let me tell you two concepts again, which are important. One is that any time in work question can be solved using just one formula. Okay, and that formula is work is equal to rate multiplied by time. Okay, this is the only formula where, in fact, in both time and distance, time and work, we just use one formula. Work is rate multiplied by time in case of time and work, and work is equal to distance multiplied by time in time and distance. Okay, rate is basically the rate of one person. So, for example, 5 unit per hour could be the rate of a particular person. Okay. The second thing that you need to keep in mind is that in a number of questions in time and work questions, you would have to assume work. Assume the amount of work. Now, traditionally, almost we have always been taught to take the work as one unit, which is totally okay. If you're comfortable with it, you can continue using it. But sometimes, in fact, my personal preference is taking the LCM of the, the number of days, each person is taking. What I mean by that is, say, for example, if someone tells me that A is a person which takes 10 days to complete a work, and say B is a person which takes, say, 15 days to complete the work, then what I would do is I would assume my work to be the LCM of 10 and 15. So that would give me 30. So I'll assume my work to be 30. Okay, and then start solving the question accordingly. And one last thing is that I usually recommend creating a WRT table, work rate time table, because it helps keep all your information in one place. Okay, because sometimes some word problem questions can be quite huge, and if you try to just jot down information, you'll feel that all your information is all over the place, and it will be very difficult to solve the question. Okay, so when you're assuming work, you can take the work as LCM of number of days. By the way, when I say number of days of each person, I mean the total time that they're taking. Okay, total time to complete the total work, the LCM of that, not partial work. Just to be very clear here, we rarely do that. In some questions we do, but those are very difficult questions, very rare chances of coming, so I'm not getting into it. For now, our scope of discussion, this is more than enough. So let's see how to solve such questions. The question says that James started a piece of work on day one and worked on it for 7 hours. Okay. But see, they are not telling me that James completed that whole work. They're just telling that James worked for 7 hours. So what you can do is you can create your WRT table, WRT, and you can write this scenario. You can say day one, D1, James came, he worked for 7 hours. Okay. On day two, Jackie joined him. Together, James and Jackie completed the remaining work in 10 hours. Okay, so on day two, James, Jackie both are working. And they worked for 10 hours and they completed the remaining work. Well and good. Also, the last information that is given to us is that if Jackie works alone, he can finish that work in 20 hours. Okay. So now see, they are telling me with the whole work. Notice whole work in 20 hours. So I have one information about the whole work, which is good. Okay. So what I can do is, if I have to assume my work, total work, I can assume my total work to be 20. Okay. Let's assume the total work of Jackie to be 20. Okay. Now I know my formula is W is equal to R into T. I told you I'm going to use just this formula to solve each and every question, and I'm going to use that only. Jackie completes 20 work. I don't know Jackie's rate, but it does that in 20 hours. So the rate, obviously, it's very obvious. It's going to be 1 unit per hour, right? Easy peasy, not a problem. Now, Let's look at this portion. Now, James, I don't know the rate of James, okay? So I can assume the rate of James to be J, say, for example. Okay. So in 7 hours, how much work did he complete? I can multiply rate and time to get my work, which is 7J. Okay. On day 2, James and Jackie were working together. So if they're working together, what would be their combined rate? J and 1, right? J plus 1. How much work would they do? Again, multiply these two. 10 times J plus 1. But together they completed the whole work. So 7J and 10 times J plus 1. In fact, let me write it separately. 7J and 10 times J plus 1. This is the whole work. And what did I assume my whole work as? I assumed it to be 20. So now I can write 17J plus 10 is equal to 20, or J is equal to 10 upon 17. Again, don't solve it. Don't again go to the calculator and start finding out these values. Don't do it. What do you exactly need? You need the time that James will take to complete the whole work. Okay. So I want to find out the time to complete the whole work for James. Now, again, use the same formula. I need time. Time is what? Work upon rate. What is the work that you assumed? 20. What is the rate? 10 upon 17, which would give you 20 into 17 by 10, which is 34. So the answer is going to be option B. Is this clear? Are there any doubts here? If yes, please feel free to ask. 66% of you, in fact, marked the answer as B, which is good. Most of you got it correct. How many of you used unit method to solve this question? In the chat box, very quickly, let me know how many of you used the unit method. And if this is perfectly clear, kindly mark yes in the yes and no poll. So once again, I'll summarize my learning. Number one learning is that any time in work question can be solved using work is equal to rate multiplied by time. Second learning is important is that whenever you're finding work, if the total time is given for the total work, you can use that to, you can assume your work has to be the LCM of all the times that is given. Ideally, any time and work question and time and distance question, especially the difficult ones, should be solved using WRT so that all your information is one place. Notice I wrote everything in one place and I only had to use one equation to solve to get my rate very easily. Okay. Also, one learning which I told you is important with respect to general word problem questions is that notice that I did not have my rate. Okay. I did not have my rate of James. For work, it was easy for me to assume my work as 20 unit. But sometimes if you don't have a value or for a particular entity, don't just think that, okay, let me keep it blank. You what is needed in this case, what is crucial for us to find out the answer? The rate is to set up an equation. So it is okay to set up a variable. Don't worry, as long as you're setting up the right equation, you'll get your answer. Or you can ask yourself in this way, okay, I want to find out the total time. Another way to reason out why you should take a variable. You could think in this way, okay, I need to find my total time. I know the work is 20. So what is stopping me from getting my answer? The only thing that is stopping me from getting my answer is the rate of James, so, which I don't have. So let me assume that as something and try to find that out somehow. Okay, so that's the other way to reason out why you would need a variable. And this is a generic learning that you can keep for any question. I told you, now, knowing what you need to find out can actually help you decide whether you need a variable or not. This is one way to figure that out. Okay. Now, if this is perfectly clear, you should be able to solve the last question. Here's the last one. Try it out. I'll give you 2 minutes for this one. And here's your poll, guys. The difficulty would be somewhere between medium to hard. I would not categorize it totally hard, the previous question. But you might be aware there are about 5 levels in GRE. I would somewhere categorize it between 3 and 4. The last question, in fact, is also somewhere around that range. You're welcome. Okay, last 30 seconds. This is another good variation of time and work question that you can get in the exam, where you'll see scenarios like people who are coming, people who are leaving. Okay, I'm starting the discussion now. Once again, keep in mind that I'm going to use this formula only to get all the answers, nothing else, not unless and until I have to apply some other concept of some other topic. That's a totally different thing. Okay, so let's read very quickly. Jade, Mona, and Pete can individually finish a project. So they are completing a total work in 9, 12, and 18 days respectively. So notice here, the moment you see this, that they're talking about the total work, you can very quickly assume your work as something, because I have the total time of completing work of Jade, Mona, and Pete. So I'll write very quickly the time as 9, 12, and 18. And I'll say, okay, let me assume my work to be the LCM of 9, 12, and 18. Okay, which would come out to be 36. So this is not an LCM lesson, so I'm not going into how to find out the LCM. We can obviously discuss this once we have a number properties lesson, but keep in mind that's a common value which is divisible by 9, 12, and 18. Okay. Now, why are we doing this? We are doing this because that will help us get our rate. Okay. Rate is work upon time. So same formula, different version that we are using. And 36 by 9 would give us 4, 36 by 12 would give us 3, and 36 by 18 would give us 2. So now we have all the rates. Well and good. Let's see what else are they talking about. All three of them decided to work on work together on that project. Okay, fine. So they are working together. So if you want, you can create a separate table, or you can continue adding it down below only. That's not a problem. All you need to keep in mind is that your work is 36. Okay, so they start working together. Now remember, when people work together, the thing that you can always add is the rates. Okay, never add time. I've seen people by mistake adding time also, which is a mistake. So if they're working together, the sum of the rates would be 9, 4 plus 3 plus 2. Okay, and they started working together. However, after 2 days, Jade left the group. Okay, so they worked together for 2 days. So write it here too, and then find out how much work has been completed. So you multiply these two values, and you can figure out that 18 unit has been done. Okay, so your total work is 36, 18 is done. So find out how much is left, and these kind of calculation you can do, on the side also, not a problem. So 36 minus 18 is 18. So 18 unit is still left. Okay, Jade is gone. Now you're left with Mona and Pete. By what percent should Mona and Pete increase their combined efficiency to complete the remaining project in another 2 days? Okay, so now how much work do I need to complete? 18. How much time am I being given? I'm being given just 2 days, okay, to complete it. Now, ideally, if the time constraint would not have been given to us, If they were working together, I would have simply added these two rates. I would have said, okay, 3 plus 2, 5, and then I would have found my time. So currently their rate is 3 plus 2, 5. Okay, but if I work with 5 units, I would take 3.6 days to complete, right? Work upon rate. But they're giving me a constraint. They're making my life difficult by saying time is 2 days. So now notice you have these two information. Work left is 18, time is 2 days. So what should be the ideal rate? The ideal rate should be 9. So what I want is that their rate instead of 5 should become 9. And they're asking me to find out how much should be the percentage increase. Okay, percent increase. Now here is something where I have to use the percent concept which I've already taught you. What is percent increase? Final by initial minus 1 times 100. What is my final value? What value do I want? I want the value to be 9. What is my initial value, which is 5 times 1 minus 1 times 100, which gives you 4 by 5, which is 80%. So the correct answer in this case is going to be option D, which 25% of you marked as the answer. Is this clear? If you have any doubts, because 50% of you marked the answer as C. So if you have any doubts, please ask. This is, I would say, one of the most important kind of questions in word problem, where, as I told you, people would come, people would go, and in such cases, you'll have to find out the time that is left, the amount of work that is left, and then solve the question. So I hope with the help of these two variations, at least any easy to medium kind of questions you should definitely be able to solve without any issues. In fact, some medium hard questions also you should be able to tackle. Hard, obviously, you'll need a little bit of more knowledge of certain areas, but overall, I think you now should have a clear-cut idea of how to approach questions. So I'll quickly summarize. We learned in ratio that whenever a ratio is given, we need to write it in a particular form, which is x, 2x, 3x that we discussed. This is an important thing that you should remember, that we should be able to write it. And whenever you have greater than or less than, then don't just read it and leave it. Try to translate it into proper equations. In case of ratio, whenever you have direct or indirect proportional, make sure to set up their equation in terms of k, constant times something, and then from there move on to solve the question. Okay. Whenever you have increase or decrease by, use the multiplier directly. Even if there are multiple of them, don't worry. Just keep on multiplying and you should be able to figure out the final value. And whenever they ask you about percentage increase or percentage decrease, use the percentage increase decrease formula. Okay. And obviously in the fourth question we learned that if the if you're selling everything that we are buying, and as long as we know the percentage distribution, that is enough to get the answer. The actual quantity is not important in such questions. Okay, so you'll be wasting your time doing all the calculations. You need to avoid it. Time and work, main two things is that obviously you can assume the work as LCM into GCD. You can take the LCM to find out the work and just use the work is equal to rate times formula to find out everything by putting everything in the WRT table. Okay, these are the main 6 learnings that if you keep in mind, you should be able to solve almost all questions of these topics easily. So that's it from my end, guys. I hope the session was helpful. Any feedback, please feel free to let me know in the chat box. If you have any questions, I'm still there for another 5 minutes. Please feel free to ask. And in case if you have questions later on, you can see the number as well as the email ID on the screen. Please feel free to write to us or ping us on WhatsApp. We would be more than happy to answer any of your questions. Okay. Any questions, anyone? Any feedback? Would be great to get some feedback. Okay, so I can see the chat box. Just give me 1 sec, guys. I'm just adding a poll. You're welcome, guys. I am really happy to see that you found the session valuable. We are going to have another session next week. Make sure to attend it. Piyush, another one of our co-founders, will be going to take it, where he's going to talk a bit about how you should plan your GRE preparation. If you're interested in knowing what are the best practices while creating a study plan and how you should go about preparing for it, I would highly recommend that you attend the next session also. Okay. Have a great day then, guys. Take care. Bye.